Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It's so great to see you here. I see people from all over the world, and I just really want to welcome you to our first of the 3 days of the Women's Workshop. This is such an important time for you to be thinking about accessing your feminine power because we are at a time of transition, and I think that people are pretty tired of the predominantly male leadership and some of the problems that they have caused us. So the fact that you're here today says to me that you're interested in potentially exploring what feminine power means. And we're going to talk about what that is, what that means, and how do we access it, and how is it different from the kinds of power we have been taught so far. So that's kind of what we're going to go into in part. And I'm looking over at my notes so I don't forget anything. And usually it's a matter of wanting to access power in more than one area of our lives. Certainly in our personal lives, we want to access power. We want to realize happiness. We want to realize financial security. We want to be radiantly healthy and energetic. And then, at a deeper level, women are feeling called. And I think this transition time we're in, where we're moving out of a male-dominated world with a call to women to step into leadership, meshes perfectly with what's coming from the inside out as we begin to awaken to the fact that we want more. We want more, not just for ourselves, we want more for this world. And we think in terms beyond ourselves. We think in terms of future generations, our kids, our grandkids. We think of community and how it's been disrupted and how we would like to have it and heal it again. So I wanted to quote something that appeared in Fast magazine a couple of years ago. Women as a group hold the power to define the 21st century. This is so true. This is such a unique moment that we have never lived in before. Women, it's been said, Western women, I think the Dalai Lama said this, the Western woman holds the key to the future. I would say women all around the world hold the key to the future because we're waking up. And I have seen, women in other parts of the world stepping into leadership. It's not always easy. And that's why I think it's important for us to give each other support as we come together and recognize that we are all seeking to self-actualize at this point in our lives in all the ways that it means personally to us and for the earth itself. A long time ago, you may be familiar with the Indian philosopher and mystic Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo said, if there is to be a future, it will wear the crown of feminine design. I hear that word "if" much more resonantly these days than I did even 20 years ago, because we know we're overburdening the planet. There is an if now in our lives, which is challenging. But he was aware that the time for us to step forward now and to realize our feminine power, he knew about it. I think he said that in the 1940s or 50s. So he was tuned in long ago. And the thing of it is, and I'm going to move my notes in a minute. The thing of it is, we feel this call. We feel it. And at the same time, what women are also experiencing is being really stuck. Because how do you do this? What is feminine power? What are the steps? There's nothing out there in the culture that supports it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And excuse me, I'm just want to make sure I'm staying on track here. So what I'm going to do today is we're going to do something called setting a magnetic intention. And what that entails is something more tapped into your feminine power than just setting goals. Every year on New Year's, you set your goals. And then, of course, you kind of lose track in some cases. So this goes deeper, and then it requires ongoing commitment and a discovery of some aspects of feminine power that we're going to talk a bit about today. So it's very interesting that research, again, shows that we women, because of the way we were socialized and told, little girls are like this, but they're not like that, and so on, we learn to look outside ourselves at other people to see how they see us, and then decide how we should behave. So, and we oscillate. The point of this research was to point out women oscillate between looking outside, trying to figure it out. How should I be? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? And then going inside, where all that self-criticism and self-doubt lives, because of the way we were socialized and told you could be like this, but not like that. Little girls don't act like that, whatever. So we have inner critics. We suffer from self-doubt. So there you are oscillating between outer and inner, but it's not tapping into your wisdom. We were not taught that we can tap into an inner wisdom. There's no institutions out there in the world yet to support that. Our parents, most of our parents anyway, didn't support us in that. So we never learned to really trust ourselves. And so in that oscillation place, there's not groundedness, there's not stability. So we're going to talk about that. And, if you think about the way we're told to achieve things in the world, we're supposed to set a goal. And then we create a strategy and a bunch of steps to, accomplish the goal. The problem is the goal is set from here. It's not set from your inner feminine power center, which we're going to talk about. And as a reason, it's great if you're building a greenhouse in the backyard or something, you want a strategy and a plan. But if you're looking to realize your inner gifts that you were born with, what's the plan? What's the strategy? How do you write it down as a number of steps? It doesn't work that way. Accessing feminine power, I think of it more as being like the artistic process, that you are an artist of your own life, and you learn how to tune in and listen, and it awakens capacities you might never have used before. So we're tired of living in that realm of self-limitation and feelings like we're isolated. Isolation is a very big issue for women because there isn't a culture yet that really recognizes what we need in order to evolve. So in the setting of, creating a vision board, what would you put on the vision board in order to find the love that you long for in your life? I guess you could cut out a picture, but it's not going to give you how it comes about, how it manifests. So, and one of the things about starting to step into feminine power is it really challenges you. And some women don't like this too much, but it challenges you to step out of your comfort zone. That's not always very easy. I remember a client who said, I don't think of myself as feminine. I have a wonderful career and I own my own home. So to her, feminine was something weak. And that's, again, something that came to us through the culture, through lack of understanding. But, stepping out of the comfort of, at least I know where I am right now and it's familiar, can be challenging. So letting go of control is really important. What happened really is you lost touch with some of the gifts you were born with. You're probably familiar with Carl Jung, and there are a lot of Jungian psychoanalysts or analysts around who do therapy. I like the concept that they have of bringing forward the self, that when people reach a point in their life when they're really troubled because they're suffering an inner trauma and inner pain, a sense of disorientation and loss, and come to a Jungian therapist, the Jungian therapist will say what they're doing. They don't say this to the client, but they describe the process as bringing forward the self. And that's a self with a capital S. There's your everyday self, but then there's this other self. It's Jung described the self as the window to the divine. He also described it as your inner divine, or your inner whole beingness that you were born with. And you got disconnected through experience with your family of origin, experiences in the culture. So part of this process of developing your feminine power is getting back in touch, reconnecting with what you lost touch with. So what I want to do before we go into this exercise of setting a magnetic intention is I want to give a little more context. Back in the 70s, in the third wave of the women's movement, we definitely tapped a level of power. We learned how to function the way men function. We developed our rational skills and our business management skills. We wore pantsuits to work, and some women even wore ties. We became very masculinized, but it worked. Women went into the workforce in droves. But what we're talking about now in terms of self-actualization is the next level. And you can't get there with the masculine skills that we all developed as we moved into the work world in the 70s. This is different. And as a result, because it's quite new still, we're not sure how to get traction and how this works. So there we are in this vision of possibility, and at the same time in all this stuckness about how to move forward. And it's not a personal failure. It is not your personal issue. This is something that we all share. This is a communal experience that women are going through right now. So, I mean, clearly you've had successes in your life. You've probably raised a family, or you're raising one. Maybe you're raising grandkids. You've had a career. You've been impactful in your community, or maybe beyond. But what's happening now is we're awakening to what's called, or what's been called, self-actualization. So when you feel that call, it's to, some people say, to a higher level of manifestation in your life. I like to think of it as sort of concentric circles rather than a hierarchy. But it has to do with that expanding of your capabilities, your at-homeness in yourself, radiating that kind of presence that impacts other people, and they know they can learn to trust themselves because they trust what you're emanating. And that is something that's part of accessing your feminine power. So it's an interesting thing because we have so many diverse aspects to ourselves, and we can be pulled in a lot of different directions. When we set a magnetic intention, by contrast, think about focusing. You want to, instead of, thinking all the things you care about and the things that you want to manifest, you can't do them all at the same time. So what I thought I would do today is to list the key areas that women want to manifest in. And if something really resonates to you. Because sometimes it's a little hard to figure out, well, what do I most yearn to manifest this year? So here are some areas that pretty much describe the areas women care about. The first one is confidence. A lot of us would like to have more confidence. This is a yearning to really be authentically yourself. We often learned ways of being that weren't truly authentically ourselves, but we learned it. One of the reasons we learned it was if we grew up, and it's still part of a problem, but it's called the male gaze. We learned to see how we looked by checking out how men were checking us out. That's not authenticity. And so women want to feel authentically themselves. We want to feel grounded in our bodies. We want to feel we know the skills that we need to know to do the work we want to do. And so if confidence resonates with you, that may be your area. And I thought it was really interesting to learn that Angela Merkel, who used to be the Chancellor of Germany, and Christine Lagarde, who is currently the president of the European Central Bank, they used to get on the phone every week, and for all I know, they still do it to keep up each other's confidence. And here they are, leaders in the Western world. But the thing of it is, they're functioning in an all-male environment, so they're not getting the feedback, that will support them. So there they are, girl talk on the phone, Angela Merkel and Christine Lagarde. If that isn't a great role model, I don't know what is. So confidence might be your area. The next area is love and intimacy. I think there's hardly a woman who doesn't yearn for a partner who really loves them for who they're becoming, who has their back, who supports them as they go through this process of personal growth and evolution, and wants to be in a growth-oriented relationship with them. If this is something that you want in your life, you may want to transform your current relationship into something of real intimacy where you're really friends and you're close in a way. I never had that. I didn't know what that was. I was married and then I was divorced and a single parent because nobody was teaching that at the time. And we're realizing how important intimacy is, how important it is to have a partner who really is with you in this growth path. Sometimes not that all that easy, but genuine, authentic, real love. The next area is discovering your purpose and calling. I think some of the people on this call may really be at that point in your life where you're saying, okay, I've done, the raising the kids, I've done the career for 25 or 30 years. Why am I really on this earth? What is my purpose? So if that's where you want to set your magnetic intention, that's really meaningful, valuable. And the next area, on my page here, is a thriving and prosperous career. I think a lot of women are struggling to have a career that is values oriented. It's something that means something to you and that pays you adequately. I mean, we have suffered from a disparity in income for decades. And so if this is where you feel that you want to make a change, it might be getting up the courage to ask for a raise. It might be going for that promotion. I'll tell you something, what women do. And again, I do a lot of reading. And so I find these researched issues. This one has to do with women in the corporate world. Women, or even just the work world, women wait. We wait until we're about 85% sure that we know what we're going to talk about and we know the job and the parameters and yada yada. Men go for something when they're 30% confident. They don't even know, they just feel confident they can do it. And what happens is women get bypassed. They get passed right over. They don't get the promotion because we think we're still supposed to be good little schoolgirls. And if we do good, quiet work, somebody will discover us. It doesn't work that way in the politics, particularly when you want to move up in the corporate world. So if you're thinking along career lines or maybe starting your own business or whatever, this might be your area of focus for your magnetic intention. Next area is radiant health and beauty. Boy, we get all kinds of messages about what we're supposed to look like. And, the fact of the matter is women are stretched so thin between work and family. We were taught to put everybody else first. There is nothing more harmful to your health than never practicing any kind of real self-care. So if this is an area for you, this is an area where when you start to align with your true feminine nature, your health can start to improve. And what we all want is a kind of beauty that radiates from healthy skin, healthy hair. It doesn't match up to somebody's, Vogue magazine idea. It's being authentically you, radiantly healthy and having energy. And so if this is an area for you, I would say, yeah, focus on that for this year. Another area is creativity and fun. Don't we like to have fun? And women love beauty. We love things that are beautiful. So if this is what you want for your life this year, you may want to just make your house beautiful again and have people over for dinner to have that social connection. To, you know, when you have that, your world expands again, and all kinds of magical things can come out of that. You may want to grow a garden. My grandmother had these gorgeous garden of all kinds of flowers. They finally had to ask her to stop entering the flower arranging competition because she was winning all the ribbons. She had that touch. And, you know, beauty might be for you, or creativity might be taking up music that you used to do. It might be some other art form. So if creativity and fun and friendship and all of that are what matter to you this year, that might be where you want to set your magnetic intention. Another area is deepening your spiritual intention. I think all of us have been on those of us that are here have been on a path of personal growth and spiritual development for a long time. But a lot of women are wanting to define that in their own way. We've all, sat on our meditation mats and gone to retreats and things like that, but there may be something unique in your way of expressing your spirituality, and you may want to explore what that is this year. So if that's the realm that really calls to you, I would say focus there primarily. And then there's the realm of influence and your calling into the world. This is really the area where women want to step into leadership, whether that's in the community, whether that's in politics, or any other kind of leadership in the world, where you're not only lifting up yourself through your own work, you are lifting up others around you. And I would say that in general, any woman who has begun to access her feminine power and to radiate that kind of authenticity and natural beauty, she's going to inspire people. And, I'm thinking, what is the Sleepless in Seattle, where he says, I'm having what she's having. You have that impact on people when you start to be really comfortable with yourself, when you're happy, when you're radiating a natural health and beauty. So those are the areas of focus. And my background, I started out as a teacher. I actually taught in the Peace Corps. I taught English as a second language in Somalia. So I have a real resonance with that whole area. Somalia is Muslim, and it's right there where the Houthis in Yemen, which is right across the Gulf of Aden, are currently stopping ships that are trying to go up and help Israel carry on its war. And other, people need to eat in Israel. This is not easy on Israelis either. But that's where I lived for 2 years. And it just awakened me to the larger world. But I also was still troubled by a lot of family issues that I had struggled with. So I went back to school in psychology. I graduated from UC Berkeley, and then I went back to UC Santa Cruz. I had 3 wonderful years. I met so many wonderful people there. And then I did 3 years of graduate school in clinical counseling, psychology, and transpersonal, the spiritual aspect of our growth, and to become a therapist. And I worked in that area for a while, but I realized I really liked coaching, because in coaching, you can start with the vision. I really like that. And then when you run into those blocks in yourself, you have this vision to kind of guide you as you, like it's the purpose of why you're doing this personal growth work. So that's a little bit about my background. And one of the things that really struck me was realizing that the reality that we live in, the 3D reality, material world, isn't the only reality. And, what was perceived in that ancient female deity religion that lasted, it's the longest lived religion that ever existed. It lasted from 25,000 BC to about 1800 BC. God was not male. God was female. She was called goddess or female deity. And the consciousness about reality, the sense that everything's interconnected, the seasons, the process of gestation, birth, maturation and blooming, and then the harvest, and then the decline, death, and then rebirth. This was natural to these people, our ancient ancestors, to understand that. So how come we didn't inherit that? Well, a long history through, I know the Western world history better than other histories, but we were born into a world that actually derives from the 17th century Enlightenment. And you probably have heard of Rene Descartes, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." And I thought to myself, where's the rest of him? How about I feel, therefore I am? Or how about I'm embodied and therefore I am? But no, what happened? It's not to say that the evolution and the elevation of rational thought wasn't important, but the problem is it came with a complete final destruction of that female consciousness, that female religion. And as a result of that, we lost touch with it. And with it went respect for women and any understanding of the cycles of life. And we end up in this world, which is called mechanistic, and God created it was very Newtonian, and God created a world that ran like a clock. It was a machine, and then withdrew to the heavens above. The goddess was never like that. She was right here with us. She was the creatrix, the one that was part of all. And that's what we celebrated. We worshiped her in the groves, and people said we were pagans and we should be wiped out. So, so where are we? Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to reemphasize again that when we're in this secular world mentality where we're thinking, okay, I have to make a plan, I have to figure out the steps, there are no clear steps to this process. And so I want to give just some examples. If you want to just step into visibility in your life, what are the steps? It's different for every woman, and there'll be similarities, but you're where you are in your life. And for you to step into visibility may dovetail with your particular magnetic intention, which we're going to set later in a few minutes. And what about discovering your genius? What about bringing forward all those gifts you were born with that you left behind? Or what about feeling at home in your body? What would that be like for you? And what are the rules or steps for that? There aren't any. Or what about, you want to create real intimacy in your relationship, or you want to find that partner? Well, where do you go to find him? In other words, it's more intuitive than just this kind of goal setting process. So, and the problem is that when women have kind of waked up to the idea that setting a goal isn't the process, the other thing and we try to control and it doesn't work out, then the other thing we do is we go, okay, I surrender. Universe, what do you want me to be? Just tell me. I'll do it. I'm listening. That isn't feminine power either, because it's passive. Feminine power is characterized by a combination of listening like an artist and creating and learning skills and taking action. You can't manifest if you're just waiting for the universe to tell you what to do. And I think common sense tells you that. But sometimes we tend to fall into that trap. And a lot of us have done that, in confusion, just saying, okay, it's not working out, it's not happening. So I'm just going to ask God, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do? Well, the process of accessing feminine power is more active than that. It's more skills oriented than that. It's more doing it than that. And that's not to say you aren't listening. So we've hit that power paradox again. What we were taught doesn't work for manifesting your feminine power, and we don't yet get that support out in the culture. So there is that gap, the gap. where we are now and, where we want to be. So I'm going to skip over this part because we kind of talked about it already. I did want to say, I thought this was really quite a brilliant insight someone else had. It's not mine, but she said, you know what? We were absolutely steeped in a system of male power, and it was like water to a fish. I thought that was very interesting. We didn't see it. How could you see it when you were 2 or 3 years old and that shaping process was going on? And it happened throughout our lives. It's happened often to us throughout our lives by virtue of trauma as children, by virtue of pressures from society as we got older. And in terms of what this, well, here's another interesting thing I wanted to bring up. Our feminine, if you look in the dictionary for the definition of power, you know what it says? It says domination, control, and power over. There's your male system. We wonder why we have 7 billionaires running the world now. It's because they seized hold of the land. They seized hold of the right to power. And this has been carrying forward now for a few centuries. Our feminine power is different. And so we're not interested in domination. We're interested in empowering everyone and lifting up ourselves and everyone else. So it's very good news that you're here because this is a really important time. And I know Jean Houston, you may have heard of her. She said, she talks about entelechy. She's talking about purpose, but she says, the entelechy of an acorn is to become an oak tree. The entelechy of a rose hip or a rose seed is to bloom as a rose. What is our entelechy? And that is what you're sensing, that inner call that there's more to you, and there is. So I thought, how can I think about this? And I thought of the British biologist Rupert Sheldrake. You may have heard of the concept of morphogenic fields. He says that the information to become an oak tree is not all there in the acorn. It's in the field of information around the acorn. In other words, in the morphic field. And I would guess he would say that for human beings, when we sense that there's more to us, it is still there. It was around us as we were born. We were born with these talents. We were born with these skills. And so she's still there. Your full empowered self is there. And it's just a matter of learning how to overcome your self-doubt, how to overcome trauma that you've suffered in order to access her. And another interesting thing to just kind of hold in mind is that this shaping of us much of it happened in the first 7 years of our life, when research shows that we were in theta brainwave state. The awake brainwave state is beta. It's a faster speed. Theta is more hypnotic. We were little theta sponges. We were just soaking up what the world was at the time. So that's what we understood. And so now here we are at this stage of waking up and wanting to self-actualize. So where did that word come from? Probably it came from the American psychologist Abraham Maslow. And it's very interesting. He was very steeped in the Western version of psychology in the late 1930s. And for his thesis, he thought, well, you know what? One of the things I'm going to research the Native American Blackfoot Nation to learn what their system of dominance and hierarchy is. They didn't have one. He got there and he's like, oh my goodness. Their view is the child is born already fully self-actualized, and it is the responsibility of the tribe to nurture that child so that when she is an adult, she can give those gifts for the well-being of the tribe. Can you imagine what kind of world we'd live in if we were all nurtured because everyone saw our gifts and welcomed us into the tribe, and everyone participated in helping us to grow up to be who we were born to become. I love it. I think it's beautiful. Needless to say, he switched the focus of his PhD thesis to studying the children and how they were taught. So, there's hardly any of us that didn't experience some level of trauma as children. And I'm really glad to see that we're starting to talk about trauma more openly because it's been a secret. I mean, nobody in our family talked about trauma. They still don't. It's not something that's it's not in our language. It's not in our conscious awareness until very recently. And my mother was, she was raised by a woman who was an opera singer, quality voice, but she didn't get to develop it. So she took a lot of her rage at being mocked for her skills out on my mother. And so my mother took it out on us kids. So down through the generations, the trauma goes. So I asked her when I was older, I said, Mom, how come you were always trying to cut me down to some size, or you were always telling me, no, I couldn't do this or that? And my mother said, it was for your own good. Wanting to become who you are is selfish, and you'll get over that nonsense. Oh, okay. So, within a few years after that, I discovered a book called, interestingly, by that name, For Your Own Good, Hidden Cruelty in Child Rearing and the Roots of Violence. So this was written by a Swiss psychoanalyst, and you've probably heard that term, spare the rod and spoil the child. Or I found in Proverbs 23:14, thou shalt beat him with a rod, and therefore shall deliver his soul from hell. So this idea that we're born into sin and that children have to be beaten is not in every culture. Unfortunately, it has been very predominant in the Western world, and it has created violence. So that really struck me. I actually bought that book because it really struck me. And there, she cites another book. The title of this book is On the Character Fault of Exuberance in Children. Can you imagine? I was quite an exuberant child. I grew up in San Francisco in my early years. And one day I was 3, and I had a buddy across the street named Scotty. And we decided it was time to learn more about the larger world. So we walked all the way around Scotty's block. And I got home. My mother locked me in the garage for going around the block. Now, of course, she probably was scared that something could have happened to me, but she could have talked to me instead. But no, I wasn't particularly scared, but I just remember thinking, what did I do wrong? The next time I went exploring, we had a neighbor lady. This is after we moved from San Francisco to the small town where we went back there so he could help his father run the family lumberyard business. And that horse that you see up on the wall is a tribute to my grandfather. He raised horses and he raised roses. And I saw that, I said, I got to have that. So the second time I just did my exploring, I maybe was 6, and we lived next door to this, or she lived kind of behind our house. And she used to use a almond knocker mallet to bang on the roof and bang on the ceiling and the walls of her house. So I thought, I need to find out what this is about. So I went over there and I said, how come you hit the wall? She said, oh, the squirrels. And I'm like, oh, okay. She has her reality. Okay, now I understand her better. When I came home, my father tied me up with a rope in the backyard so I wouldn't go anywhere. And he left me there. Fortunately, it was summer. I wasn't cold. I didn't suffer. But my point is, that doesn't nurture a child. What they actually did was they kind of created a rebel in me, because I had a grandmother next door, my father's mother, who was very loving. And she said, I love you to bits. You're the granddaughter. You're the daughter I never got to have. So it would be great if we could all just be loved to bits from the time we're little kids. So I wanted to mention, and you may be familiar with the archaeological work of Maria Gimbutas. because in the late 1950s and early 1960s, she did an archaeological dig in Europe. And what she uncovered was one of these female deity organized religions or cultures. And she said it was amazing. The houses were all spaciously laid out. The pottery was beautifully decorated. And she found all these statues of women, of all ages and all kinds of dress and design. And what was interesting, she didn't find a single weapon of war, not one weapon. These people lived in peace for centuries. How did this change? Why did we have war? Around 4300 BC, warrior tribes from the steppes, which would be Ukraine, Russia area, came down into Europe and they destroyed these peaceful towns. These towns weren't armed, they were open. That was really the beginning of walled cities. But the point is that I want to make is human beings, they say we're by nature violent. That's not true. That's not true. It depends on how we were raised. It depends on the culture we're in. And here was this amazing culture that lived for centuries in peace. The leader was a woman, a queen, but it was egalitarian. The men had responsibilities and the women had theirs. And it lasted for a very long time. You can find her books on Amazon. One is called Language of the Goddess, and one is called Civilization of the Goddess. So this process that we're stepping into, I call it artistic, because one of the things about artists is artists have thin boundaries between their personal reality and the greater reality. And what that means is they're able to connect, they're able to download information much more easily than someone with a more fixed boundary and reality. So what we're doing isn't about, we're thinning our boundaries, and it's not about willpower and pushing. It's about setting that magnetic intention. And it's great because there isn't a simple and easy to delineate path. You may have heard that expression, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And so, and then in Proverbs, again, I found this, Proverbs 16:9. A man's heart deviseth, I lost my place here. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. So this is the path of co-creativity. And there is an aspect of surrender of your ego and your willpower, but the wonderful synchronicities that can start showing up and the sense of being supported by the universe is very powerful. So, and with regard to intention, I wanted to mention that intention now has been really proven. Researchers include Lynn McTaggart. They also include, for example, a 28-year-long project at Princeton. It was in the engineering department, interestingly, and it was called Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research, PAIR, P-E-A-R. The head researcher, Robert John, J-A-H-N, said at the end of that, we have proved beyond statistical doubt that human intention affects the world around us. It's up to you to now figure out the implications. So the implications are huge. We are literally co-creators with the universe. And British transformational leader Peter Merry has said, when he works in corporate and nonprofit groups to help them, resolve and create a project, he says, think of reality like this. There's the outermost circle, and that circle is comprised of the energy we can't see. It's the energy field that in the lab usually turns into particles. But here, we're going to use our consciousness to draw it into manifestation in the physical world. We're going to actually manifest this project or whatever we're doing. However, the next circle in is the relational architecture field. And that's the realm of our relationships with each other. And it has to be healthy, or our creation will not, as he put it, snap into reality in its best manifestation. He said, we are the nodes. We are the nodes between the not yet manifest and what manifests in the 3D world. And I love that example. And then the innermost circle is the material architecture of our 3D world. we weren't taught that we were co-creators. We weren't taught that intention is real. Well, in fact, this research at Princeton is quite recent. So I kind of hold that in mind as an understanding about how we are actually co-creators in the world. So what I want to do now is to take you through an experience of starting to develop your own capacity for manifesting using focused intention. I mentioned focused earlier when I talked about the need that we have to actually really be focused and not kind of carry about everything, which we do, but just for the purposes of manifesting something this year, focusing. And to give you an example how this can shift, there was a woman who, a client who said, what I want to manifest, and I haven't been able to do it yet, I want to become partner at my law firm. Okay. And then it shifted. And she said, you know what? I can't believe this, but I want to manifest love in my life. I never thought of myself as a woman who cared about love or who wanted that. And I realize now the reason that I wanted to become partner is I thought then I would be worthy enough to receive love. So she had all these self-doubts and all this stuff she'd carried for years. And it all shifted for her. And then she realized she didn't even want to work at this law firm anymore. She had this calling to work with children and in a nonprofit as a consultant. So she moved into that kind of work. And within a few months of just opening her heart and her being and her intention to manifesting this love, she met the wonderful man she's now married to. So I thought that was, so what I'm saying is, if it shifts, don't worry, just track it. You might want to write, keep a journal, write about it, and realize that it can evolve. So, and I'm going to use the word yearn rather than I want this, yearning goes deeper, and that's where we really want to go with this whole process. So, I'm going to guide you through there, and I think I said everything about that. Just think about what you most want to manifest now, and it can change. So let's just kind of get comfortable where we're sitting, take a couple of deep breaths. You might want to close your eyes. And then, just listen and ask yourself, what do I most yearn for in my life this year? What is it that's calling me? And just listen. What is it that I most deeply yearn for? And you might want to put your hand or your hands on your body and just say, beloved, what is it that you most deeply yearn for this year? And then ask yourself, where do I feel most alive? Where do I really feel most alive in my life? Where do you feel most like yourself? These are really powerful questions to ask because you're setting a magnetic intention from a deeper place than goal setting, deeper than your to-do list for sure. And just notice how you're starting to really connect with your body. And just kind of, if you can sense it, where in your body you're feeling kind of like a power center, like you're anchoring into a power center. And then to help you get that sense of that power center, think of a time in your life where you really were powerful. It might have been, in a sport, maybe it was dance. Maybe you won an award for some kind of excellence. Maybe you served a beautiful meal to people who had come over and they were just awed by your skills in that area and the beauty of it. Or maybe you realize you'd written a really good poem. It might have been a promotion at work, or, it might have been when you gave birth. Just bring into your power center where you're focusing just some aspect of your real power that you manifested at some point in your life that is real, and it's in there, and just bring it in there into your center. Know that you can always connect with that power as you work to evolve the next stage of your creativity. And know that all of life is organizing around your success, because when you start to align that way, you're aligning with who you were born to be, and therefore with a co-creative relationship with the universe. And one coach likes to say, it's like the universe has your back, because it does. So we're setting this magnetic intention, and then just kind of say to yourself, either quietly or out loud, it is my deep yearning to create, and whatever it is for you in my life this year, or maybe over the next few months, is my deep yearning to create this. How does that make you feel? Is there a sound or a fragrance, a color? What does that feel like? And how will you celebrate its unfolding? How will you honor that? And I had suggested maybe, writing in a journal. That's one way to do it. You might want to dance it out. So can you see how this is different from setting a goal? And we just did it rather quickly. You might want to repeat that and see whether it shifts. I would say it makes sense not to focus on more than two areas of your life for now, or you could start to get spread kind of too thin, for example. And in our next meeting, we're going to take the next step. When we set a magnetic intention, what happens is we activate self-doubt. We activate the inner critics who say, well, you never did that. How do you think you're going to do that now? You haven't done it so far. I mean, there's just all this stuff going on inside. And that's what always happens, is when you start to reach higher or more broadly in your life, those critics are still in there, the ones you learned so long ago. So I'm going to teach you a very interesting practice. It goes to the level of subpersonalities. It doesn't go to the level of those deeper, often unconscious places where some of these self-criticisms arise from. But it does go to an area that are called subpersonalities. This was the work of Roberto Assagioli. He was actually originally worked with Carl Jung, and then he went off on his own. And the concept of subpersonalities, they're all part of who we are, but they have different objectives. And if we don't know how to listen to them, and they start all talking at once, and the result can be confusion, depression, just inaction, procrastination. So what we're going to do is we're going to name them, and we're going to ask them directly a question about what their perspective is on an aspect of our life. It might be our intention. It might be something else that we're struggling to get done right now. And we're kind of, at crossroads with ourselves as to how we want to unfold that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work with subpersonalities, and it goes right to that important work of cleaning up your inner relational field, starting to create a coherence, a kind of peace of mind, a kind of, skill level to be more impactful in whatever area of intention that you intend to realize this year. So that's what we will do next time on Thursday. And again, I just want to say, take some time to really just listen tonight, and maybe maybe journal about it, because you're really starting to activate a level of creativity that may be new in your life, or this may be a slightly different focus. You may already be an artist, and this is just another way of applying the artistic kind of consciousness to shifting out of self-doubt, to shifting out of those really limiting ideas that we were shaped by before we even were old enough to remember how we took on those burdens. So have fun, create. I will see you day after tomorrow at the same time. And, let's just hold a space for each other as co-creators and women seeking to really realize all of who we are. We can hold that space. Intention is not affected by distance or time. So we can actually hold each other in this kind of creative space. And we're not alone. We're together in this. So until Thursday, have fun, be creative, and I will see you then. And I haven't actually looked in the chat at all. I'm not sure. Let's see if we've had any questions. I don't know why it's not showing me the chat. I'll have to look later and I will answer questions later. I'm not seeing, I had chat, but I'm not seeing it now and I'm not quite sure. Okay, that's all right. I will look and see, and I will go over whatever questions you have or contributions you have about your experience. I'd really be interested to hear what this was like for you. And until then, have a wonderful evening or day. If you're in Australia, I think it's 1 p.m. on Wednesday. If you're in Saudi Arabia, I think it's 5 a.m. there. So have a wonderful evening, wonderful day tomorrow, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye for now.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Melanie.